We are at beautiful Oriole Park at Camden Yards here for a special edition of MASN All Access. Paul Mancano and Brendan Mortensen. We are running this show back a day after we are recording it, so things will be a little bit out of date, but we're putting it on our podcast platforms as well, so if you subscribe to the MASN All Access podcast, you will find it there because we have a very special episode today. Brendan, we're going to be talking about Ryan Mountcastle's case for the Rookie of the Year. We're going to be reviewing our season predictions that we made a mere 6 months ago. And most importantly, we're going to have the 3 award winners for the Orioles Minor League Awards. That includes Kyle Stowers, Adley Rutschman, and one Grayson Rodriguez. Brendan, we have a packed show today.
We do, and hopefully people are going to skip right by how bad those early season predictions were.
Yeah.
Because my goodness, were they wrong? But you know what? It's going to be a fun show either way.
Well, we're saving that for last so
exactly.
that we have the fewest listeners by that point. Hopefully enough people will have dropped off by that point.
That's just smart planning.
So we're very excited to talk to these guys. Obviously, 3 guys that we've talked to before, but 3 outstanding seasons from these 3. We don't have to talk about it too much just yet, but certainly 3 deserving candidates. We talked about before, about a week ago who would win these awards, and we said you have to give it to Adley Rutschman, considering how good he was at AA and then getting the call up to AAA, and he's just continued where he left off. And then Kyle Stowers, not out of nowhere because he was a second-round pick, but what a season he had going across 3 different levels of the organization and mashing it all 3.
Yeah, I mean, Adley Rutschman is the number 1 prospect in all of baseball. Grayson Rodriguez is the number 1 pitching prospect in all of baseball. Kyle Stowers is really the one where, he was a pretty good Orioles outfield prospect, but I don't think anybody expected Stowers to have the season that he had this year. So the fact that he is the 3rd guest out of those 3 is pretty special from Kyle Stowers.
The only one that we thought might sneak into that list that did not, probably Drew Rom. A great season from the lefty who had started out the season, I think at high A, or at low A, single A Aberdeen, then went to high A. Sorry, I'm getting confused here. Single A Delmarva, high A Aberdeen, going back to the old days.
Right.
And then ended the season at AA Bowie, and he had an ERA under 3.5. We thought that might be enough to get him into the conversation, but they just end up splitting the minor league player of the year, not pitcher of the year, like they did 2 years ago when they did Grayson Rodriguez and Mike Baumann.
Yeah, beginning of the year was kind of like sneaky good numbers from Drew Rom, and then by the end of the season, it wasn't sneaky anymore. He's moved his way up in the Orioles prospect rankings, and he has now solidified himself as one of the better left-handed pitching prospects for the O's.
And he started the 3rd and unfortunately final game for the Bowie Bay Sox in the no longer Eastern League, the AA Northeast Playoffs Championship Series, in which they lost, but that was because the bullpen kind of, fumbled down the stretch. But Drew Rom ended his season on a scoreless streak. So, great season despite the fact that he didn't get the award. But Brendan, speaking of awards, going to young guys, let's talk about Ryan Mountcastle. We have avoided this conversation for as long as possible because realistically, for a large portion of this season, Ryan Mountcastle was not one of the best rookies in the American League. He started out the season incredibly slow. First month of the season, he was hitting under the Mendoza line. We saw his struggles out in left field, and he turned it on the middle part of the season, but we said his cumulative numbers are not there yet. That conversation has changed over the last month plus.
Yeah, because he's been fantastic at the plate. The defensive numbers don't really matter at this point for Ryan Mountcastle because he's been so good. I don't know if the offense has been good enough to push him over the top, which is crazy to say because there's a chance that Ryan Mountcastle could lead all American League rookies in home runs, RPIs, and potentially OPS by the end of the season. I think he still trails Randy Arozarena in that category, but he could lead all 3 and still potentially not win American League Rookie of the Year.
And part of it is his defense. So you look at some of the contenders for the American League Rookie of the Year. You mentioned probably the favorite right now, which is of the Tampa Bay Rays, Randy Arozarena, who at the time of this recording, he's hitting .273. He's got 19 homers. He's got 16 stolen bases, which leads all American League rookies. He's got an .810 OPS, which leads all American League rookies, and a 3.8 Baseball Reference WAR, which is utterly ridiculous. We saw this coming when he finished out the 2020 postseason with the kind of run that he did. But At this point, you compare his stats to where Ryan Mountcastle is, and Mountcastle isn't that far off. 258 average, 31 homers, so he's got 12 more homers than Arozarena, 84 RBIs, and 800 OPS, so 10 points lower than Arozarena's. The major difference comes in the advanced stats, and it's because of Mountcastle's defense. He has a WAR just under 1, according to Baseball Reference, and a large part of that is due to the fact that he's playing first base, which is a much less important defensive position than Arozarena in the outfield, and because of how poorly he started the season in left field defensively.
Yeah, the offensive stats are comparable for those two, but Randy Arozarena also plays a very solid defensive corner outfield. And the other thing with Randy Arozarena, I feel like this conversation kind of happens more with MVP voting in terms of, can an MVP be from a bad team? So like a Juan Soto in the National League. He might not win the NL MVP, even though he has crazy numbers, because the Washington Nationals are not competitive at this point. Ryan Mountcastle is obviously on the last place Orioles in the AL East. Randy Arozarena is on a Rays team that has surprised a lot of people and is going to win the AL East this year and will probably make a decent playoff push. So you've got to take that into consideration, probably less so than MVP, but I think it's still worth mentioning when you're talking about Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I do think it shouldn't really matter that much in theory, because rookie's not 99 times out of 100. Rookie's not going to carry a team.
Right. It's not the MVP conversation.
Right. Whereas you need to be the most valuable player on a playoff team because the team needs to be good. You need to carry a good team in theory. And you can debate that. Mike Trout has won the MVP in seasons where they haven't made the playoffs. And
right.
Juan Soto, you mentioned, is certainly a candidate, and he deserves to be despite his team's struggles. But in this conversation, I think it's just another thing. You can't knock Mountcastle for this, but you can give credit to Arozarena for being a large piece of a very, very good team.
Right, and he is consistently one of the most important parts of that Rays lineup that is winning a lot of games. So I think when you're voting for Rookie of the Year, are you going to vote for a very important piece in an Orioles lineup or a very important piece in a Rays lineup? And I think Randy Arozarena gets the edge there.
And, of course, the defense that you mentioned. And in terms of other candidates for the award, and you talk about where Mountcastle fits, assuming he's not going to win the thing, you talk about Adolis Garcia, who we've seen at Camden Yards. He's with the Texas Rangers recently. 244 average. He's got one fewer homer than Mountcastle, 30. He's got a 746 OPS, so a little bit less. He is the only one in this group that made the All-Star game. Part of that was due to the fact that he had a Texas Rangers team that is not very good. They needed a representative. But he has a much higher WAR than Mountcastle, 3.5. He also plays in the outfield, but he's better defensively than Mountcastle is at this point, and he plays a better defensive position. He might finish. He's had a bad second half. I think he's hitting 216 since July 1st, but he might have done enough in the first half to earn himself second in MVP voting.
Yeah, and
or third or fourth.
Right, and the only issue there, again, those two are more comparable because, again, it's a valuable piece in a lineup on a bad team. And even if they finish with comparable offensive stats, Adolis Garcia is still giving you more value defensively than Ryan Mountcastle is. I know Mountcastle has improved at first base, and I still think there's a chance that he beats out Garcia, but it's really tough to ignore the WAR.
Yeah.
I know we want to look at the offensive stats and praise Ryan Mountcastle for them because they are very good stats. And again, he might lead all American League rookies in home runs, RBIs, and maybe OPS by the time the year is done. But you just can't ignore the advanced stats, and the defense is a large part of that.
One guy who compares very well to Ryan Mountcastle, they're right in the same category, Bobby Dahlbeck. Same division, obviously Red Sox, first baseman, doesn't play very well defensively. Offensive numbers are just a tick below Mountcastle. So far this season, he's hitting 244, 24 homers, so 7 fewer, 801 OPS, so 1 point higher. But again, it's the defense, 0.3 Baseball Reference WAR. So to me, Mountcastle gets the edge over a Bobby Dahlbeck.
I think Mountcastle does as well, especially because Dahlbeck has been more inconsistent. I know Ryan Mountcastle struggled at the beginning of the season, but he's gotten consistently better, whereas Bobby Dahlbeck has had stretches of just not being able to play him.
Yeah.
So I think Ryan Mountcastle I would probably give the edge to over Dahlbeck. The other one I would probably give Ryan Mountcastle the edge over. I would personally give him the edge over Shane McClanahan, the pitcher for the Tampa Bay Rays, who's had pretty good numbers and, again, is a pitcher on a competitive team that's going to make a playoff push. But I don't think his numbers are so much better than Mountcastle's in terms of overall value that I would say McClanahan deserves to be a finalist over Mountcastle at that point.
Yeah, this is where things get goofy because how do you really compare a pitcher to
Right.
a position player? And sometimes you have to do it in the MVP race, but usually the pitcher has to be utterly dominant.
Yes.
Justin Verlander on the Tigers level of dominance in order to consider them a winner for an MVP.
Right.
Here, it's tough in the Rookie of the Year race because what does a pitcher like McClanahan with 120 and a third innings and 3.44 ERA give you? That's a good pitcher.
Yeah, he's been pretty good, but he hasn't been like otherworldly. I would also say Luis Garcia for the Astros has been much better than Shane McClanahan. So if you're going to look at a pitcher, I would say Garcia probably has the edge.
3.23 ERA for Luis Garcia, 9.6 Ks per 9. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
And it's probably right in the range. It's tough to tell at this point, but it's probably right in the range of Mountcastle. If you were to guess right now what the finish will be for all these guys, 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, where do you think Mountcastle fits in this, and what would your ballot look like?
It's tough. I think Mountcastle is a fringe finalist. I would put him somewhere in the 3 or 4 range. I think the toss-up for me comes with where you're ranking Adolis Garcia and Ryan Mountcastle, because the offensive numbers are comparable, but the advanced metrics tend to go towards Adolis Garcia. I think my number 1 is Randy Arozarena. I think he's been pretty far and away the best rookie. I would probably give number 2 to Luis Garcia because he's been a really important part of that Astro staff, and he's had a really good season. 3, 4 is where I'd put Garcia and Mountcastle. I think, honestly, I'd give the edge to Garcia just because the defensive numbers are better, the advanced metrics are better, and the home runs and RBIs and OPS are going to be pretty comparable at the end of the year. So if the numbers are comparable but the advanced stats lean Garcia, I think I'd probably put Garcia 3rd.
I would too. I would put Mountcastle 4th, and it's not just that he has the edge in the advanced numbers in terms of WAR, and WAR isn't the end-all, be-all, but what is it good for? Absolutely nothing, as they say.
Yeah.
But he's so far ahead.
Right.
It's not like it's the difference between 0.9 and 1.4. It's the difference between 0.9 and 3.5. That's a massive difference in my mind. And to me, that makes up for any difference offensively. So I would probably go with Garcia. But that being said, Garcia is 28. Mountcastle's 24. So I have faith that Mountcastle will.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you're asking me which one that I would rather start a franchise with right now, I'd say Ryan Mountcastle.
Yeah. So the point being, the award, is great and all, but it really doesn't. It doesn't really matter ultimately in however many years. It's a nice piece of metal you can put on your mantelpiece, but it really comes down to how good are you going to be for this team going forward. And even if Mountcastle does not finish in the top 3, you have a lot of faith that he is going to be a significant piece of your lineup for years to come.
Yeah, and Mountcastle, I believe, is younger than Arozarena as well.
I think so. I think Arozarena is 25, 26.
Yes. So of the American League hitters, Ryan Mountcastle has had the best season of a 24-year-old.
Yeah. Well, maybe there are some candidates that the Orioles have in the stadium today who could win Rookie of the Year next year. Adley Rutschman, Kyle Stowers, Grayson Rodriguez. We will talk to them next. We're joined now by the minor league award winners, Adley Rutschman, Grayson Rodriguez, and Kyle Stowers. And I feel like handing this off to Adley because he seems ready to host this show. The way that you've been handling that mic, and you asked if we were live. Are you ready to be the host?
Let's go for the intro.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm ready to go. How's it going? We're back with MASN here. We got Kyle Stowers, Grayson Rodriguez here, co-player of the year, pitcher of the year, ready to get into it, chop it up a little bit. Excited with these guys. Let's get to it.
Why?
I have. It's been my word to go to. Chop it up.
Well, you started your press conference down in the dugout just now by saying, "Let's get this started." Do you feel like you were doing about 1 million interviews a week? I feel like being the number 1 prospect in baseball. Are you getting used to this? Is this second hat, or do you get nervous for any of this stuff?
No, I just try and have a good time with it, I think. I wasn't saying let's get it started to get it over with.
I know.
I was excited. It was an exciting statement.
It did not come off as you were trying to get things.
I don't like how he always assumes he's the leader. That's what
we
I
have
have.
some division.
That's what I have a problem with.
He's got the age on you.
That's
Grayson.
right. I am your elder.
Mentally, no.
And Grayson is the only one in a full suit at this
This
point.
is true.
You're right about
That's
that.
a certain level of prestige right
So
there.
for those who are just
Absolutely.
listening and not watching, Grayson, you were in a full suit.
Full suit.
2 years ago, you came to the ballpark. You had crocodile shoes.
2 years ago, I was just telling him this. I was kind of in a little Texas look, khaki pants, alligator boots, nice button down. Well, everybody else was in a full suit, and so then I was the one that got made fun of for not wearing a suit. So this year, I was going to wear a suit. That was certain.
Okay. Well, you guys did not coordinate apparently because you guys just went with the button downs. It's a warm day, but do you guys feel underdressed? Kyle Stowers, Adley Rutschman.
Hey, this is overdressed for me. I'm usually in t-shirt and shorts and sandals. So
Yeah. Got to let the flow out though every
yeah,
now and
this is
again.
my first day without a hat in a long time. So
Adley.
I mean, I feel comfortable right now. Me and Kyle look great. I don't know about Grayson. His head's been getting pretty big lately.
I feel great.
Yeah, good.
Grayson, we just saw you a week ago at the end of the season in Bowie. Before your last start of the season, I saw you in the bullpen crush a Red Bull right before you took the mound. Is that a common occurrence for you before your starts?
So I did that at the beginning of this year. I was coming out of the bullpen, slammed the Red Bull, crushed it on my head, had a good game. So then every start after that is the same, little thing that happens is slam the Red Bull, crush it on the head, and a hard slam into the trash can, and then, we're good. We're good to go.
Is that something, do you feel it after a while of certain slams against the head?
No, like he stated just a second ago, the head's getting pretty big. So, I mean, I don't think the can, can really hurt it or make it worse.
We also saw you tossing around a football pregame. Is that just kind of a ritual thing? Have you been doing that for a while?
No, so that's something I've done kind of the last 2 years, and then really started doing it before the games this year. It's really helped me get loose.
Really?
Yeah. I think it's had a big impact on in my season and how I felt.
who's QB1 on Bowie?
That'd be our strength coach, John Medici. Yeah, he's QB1. I see myself as wide receiver 1. So,
I mean, I feel like you could be a tight end.
yeah, there's
Given
a
your
mix
height.
there. We'd have to put on a few pounds.
I've seen him
But-
out there. He brings out the gloves.
Yeah,
every now and then
I
brings
saw.
out a helmet.
I had the gloves, and then of course the helmet Justin Tucker gave me. I might have put a purple visor in it, and we've been rolling with that every game.
Who's your NFL comp?
NFL comp?
Yeah.
There's not one because I'd be my own animal.
Jeez.
So sticking with the Justin Tucker question, Adley, back in the day, you were quite the kicker. You hit a 63-yarder, right? So on Sunday, Justin Tucker hits the 66-yard game-winning field goal. Adley Rutschman lining up from 66 yards. Are you making that kick to win the game?
No, I'm washed up now. But I mean, back in
Ball
my prime.
flies in Oregon.
Oh my gosh. Back in my prime, I'd give it a good run. But that was definitely impressive. It was cool to watch.
I mean, that hit the crossbar. So I feel like if you could hit, did yours kick from 63 go straight through, or did it hit the crossbar?
Yeah, there's probably like 6-7 yards of
So you're hitting from like 71 at that point.
Yeah, that's easy. Yeah.
So you're saying high school Adley was peak?
Peak. Absolutely, I peaked in high school.
High school Adley was the
There it
greatest
is.
kicker in NFL history.
Peaked in high school.
heard it here
Tackled
first.
Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
That's right.
Mhm.
And you off on the kickoff, right, at Oregon State.
Yep.
Wow. I think I'd draft you on my fantasy football team. Just saying. I think I could do that. Yeah. All right. So I want to ask about Adley and Kyle, your friendship, because did you guys know each other when you were playing in the Pac-12 back in your college days?
Yeah, I can take this one. Well, he probably has something to say too. But we we actually met in high school. We played in North Carolina together for a USA baseball event, and that was the start of it. And my freshman year, when I pinch hit on a Sunday when we were down about 6 or 7 or 10, I looked at Rutsch and I go, "Hey Adley," and he goes, "Hey Kyle." And I think so every time we played each other during college, we said what's up. And my college roommate, they knew each other in high school, so that's kind of how we stayed connected, and we made fast friends when we got into the organization together.
Nice. So Adley, would you like to add to that after Kyle just shut you down there?
No, that's well said by a Stanford graduate. So I'm gonna let him have that one.
Yeah. I mean, is there any competitive Oregon State, Stanford kind of competition going on here?
I can't say anything because they kind of beat us a lot my years there. I just talk about the other sports.
Yeah. I'll take that as well. Yeah, I can confirm that.
leveled Christian McCaffrey.
So, Grayson, we'll go to some baseball questions here. You were mentioned in the press conference, you were talking about using your off speed a little bit more and working the four quadrants a little bit more. Can you talk about that a little bit more? And obviously, everybody talks about your fastball, but how has your off speed stuff progressed this year?
He'd probably be the best one to ask about that. He's back there catching it, and to him, it's really not that good. But just being able to throw it, whenever he called it. We'd be in some counts where I'm thinking fastball and he calls a curveball, and we throw a curveball and it's a strikeout. So, sometimes he might be smarter than me. I don't like to think that all the time, but, just being able to throw off speed, whenever.
So, Adley, from your perspective, what have you seen from him this year and his growth?
Yeah, I think his ability to really just move the fastball around and then work his pitches off of that and just really throw any pitch at any count has really impressed me. It's been fun to catch all year, and also to see the antics of the Red Bull and all the other stuff that comes along with him being self-proclaimed the Butcher when he is on a start day. So it's been the Butcher.
Yeah, let's hear about this nickname a little bit
the
more.
The Butcher. That's Grayson's nickname for himself, and he's a different beast on game day and when he starts, and it's fun to see him work, and it's just. I'm just back there basically coasting because he makes it super easy.
So Grayson, let's elaborate on that nickname a little bit more.
So one day we were in our pregame meeting, our advanced scouting meeting, and Buck and Ramsey, all our coaches are in there, and they asked me, they go ahead and say, well, what jerseys are we wearing? So then I go on to give a little speech about how Butchers wear white. Things get a little nasty in there. So, we rolled with that. And then I think there were a few shirts made about it. But so when I'd show up on my start days, everybody would call me the Butcher.
All right. How do you feel about the gas cans?
The gas cans, I loved it. It was a little different. But no, I definitely loved it. That was something that, my younger brother thought was cool, and my parents.
All right, Kyle. Any nicknames, self-proclaimed or otherwise, that you've been given?
I wouldn't say self-proclaimed, but Stowie Powie was always one of them. I think the hashtag started at Stanford my sophomore year when I hit a couple home runs, and that's kind of the one that's stuck with me.
In terms of your power, I mean, you didn't put up ridiculous power numbers at Stanford, but then this season has been ridiculous from a power standpoint. Is that something that you came into the year hoping to improve, was your power, or did that just come naturally?
Yeah, I think, Northern California, up in the Bay Area, the ball doesn't fly like it does in Oregon. Rutsch wouldn't have kicked the 63-yarder in the Bay. I don't know. I feel like I've always had it in me, and just kind of this year the ball's just gone over the fence a little more. I've gotten a lot stronger. I think just the year from year off, I had a lot of chance to dedicate in the weight room and get stronger.
What's the next step for you? And we'll go down the line as well, because you guys are looking ahead to the off season. Obviously, Norfolk season's still going on, but are you starting to evaluate how your season has gone on and areas that you want to improve upon?
I always looking for ways to get better. I think first and foremost, mentally, just figuring out how to continue to be resilient. Through the ups and downs of a season, how to handle a full season. This is my first time playing a full one, so that's a big thing for me. I still think room physically to get stronger, maybe a little bit faster would be nice. But then, I think those are some big things for me. I feel like I'm, still have so much room to grow and get better. So I think that's what's exciting, and I feel like everyone would say the same thing about themselves down the line, that we're just hopefully scratching the surface.
Yeah, Adley, how about you?
Yeah, I just going along with that. I think it's always good to have another year of development in the weight room and just to get your body right after a long season. So I'm really looking forward to that, and then just small things with swing and catching wise. So I'll have some time to do that, and it'll be good. I'm going to pass along to Grayson.
Perfect.
What was the question again?
Off-season plans for anything you want to improve upon or anything you have bookmarked.
I would say along the lines of what they were just saying, whether it be like strength and conditioning, that's always a must for pitchers. Strong part of, building a healthy arm, starts in the off season. So being able to come out, a lot stronger than we were last year. Velo numbers, hopefully those increase as well, and just come out and have a healthy season.
You mentioned the velo numbers. Do you happen to know your spin rate for your fastball offhand? Is that memorized?
No, I don't really necessarily pay a lot of attention to spin rate. There's some other little metrics that we look at, but yeah,
what
not
kind
off
of
the top of
metrics,
my head.
if you don't mind me.
That would be vertical induced break or hop. Me and DL like to call them bunnies. So
I did hear that in Bowie.
So yeah. So focusing on bunnies and I don't know, just kind of how the pitch is moving.
Do you have those numbers memorized? Your hop?
Yeah. So we're anywhere from about 20 to 22 on average. That's kind of where me and him have both been at.
22 inches, right?
Yeah.
Gotcha. And that's for your fastball? Gotcha.
So, Adley, obviously you've caught him a good amount this year. Are there any other pitchers in the system that you've spent a good amount of time with that have really impressed you throughout the year?
Yeah, I mean, we got a lot of good talent coming up, and obviously he's right there at the front of it. But gosh, over the course of this year, it's been a blast. I mean, the guys we got in Norfolk right now are doing a phenomenal job. The guys we had in Bowie when I was there. It's just been an overall really fun year to see these guys and see them grow, and everyone's just so bought into what we're doing right now, which is what makes it so enjoyable, is because everyone's on the same page. We're all working in the same unison and whatnot. So I'm looking forward to next year and just seeing what it brings.
One question for Adley. You had 2 triples in back-to-back games, was it? We all know that you are very highly rated in a lot of areas. Speed is not your highest rated tool. Are people underselling your speed?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I got wheels. It takes me a little bit to get going, but once the train's rolling, we get to third. But
Grayson looks like he's...
I think the speed is there. I know there was one point this year, Adley hits a ball maybe down the line, legs out the double. Innings over, immediately comes in the dugout, walks, just on a line to me, and goes, "How fast did I look right there?" I said, "Pretty fast." He said, "I felt fast." I said, "I felt faster than anything." He goes, "They have got my speed wrong on everything."
Wow.
Yeah, he said,
He must have seen Christian McCaffrey ahead of him.
I said, "Rutsch, you looked really fast." And he said, "Well, great, I felt fast." So,
40-yard dash times. Who's winning here?
Me.
Kyle?
That was quick.
Can I add anything?
40 yards, it would take me about 3 steps with my legs.
Yeah.
So the ground's getting covered.
Yeah. Well, we've taken up enough of your time with these ridiculous questions. We do have one parting gift for Grayson. Sorry we didn't get anything for you, Adley or Kyle. But I don't know if you want to walk around with this the rest of the time, but we spent $20 on it. So here's a gas can.
This is a
Go ahead and
prime
pass
gas
that
can.
down.
I was thinking it would be cool if, you just walked on the field and just presented it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I might carry it out with me later to accept the award.
There's
I
nothing
think you
in
should.
there.
Well, this is the real award today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We should have decorated it with like glitter.
This is like an early Christmas present.
When you
that's great.
I just hope when they show you during the broadcast, like in the booth or wherever you guys are, that you're lifting that thing up like Simba.
Hold it up Simba
Okay.
style.
All right. Well, then you're gonna hear. I'll carry this around with me today.
All right.
So
Perfect.
it'll be out onto the field too.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. Hope you enjoy your time at Camden Yards on a beautiful night here.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
Well, that was enjoyable. Adley Rutschman, Grayson Rodriguez, and Kyle Stowers. Hands down, our most fun interview of the season. All right, we're going to turn the page over to, first off, before we even do that, Brendan, anything stuck out to you from what they said? The ridiculous nature of the things that they were saying?
They're just fun. I mean, you can just tell that they really enjoyed playing the game together and being teammates together. Adley, even in his press conference before the game, a lot of his answers when they were asking him about, the organization as a whole, he was just talking about the people.
Yes.
Like, it was just good people to be around, and it was good teammates. And it seems like a lot of what they're building is like, yes, they've got good baseball players, but they've also got a lot of good individuals on the team, which is clearly really important, as you saw with those 3 guys and how they get along. That's how you're going to build a winning team.
They're friends. And it's not just the top guys. It's not the top guys and everybody else. It's a true organizational
Right.
thing where these guys are close and they've come up together, and the hope is that they're going to come up and win together.
Right.
Very fun stuff from all three of those guys, and just this is how all three of them are so confident in a good way. And honestly, that's what you need, is that kind of confidence. And I think that's what fans are looking forward to seeing from these guys, is they're going to come up and be the second, third, fourth best players on the team potentially, depending on who the Orioles sign in free agency. So they're going to come up and they're going to be – there will be veteran leaders in the clubhouse, but they're going to come up and they're going to, from day one – be looked upon by the fan base as the future of the team.
Right, and you can tell, especially with guys like Adley and Grayson. I mean, Adley is built to be the leader in a clubhouse. Grayson Rodriguez is built to be the leader of a pitching rotation.
Yeah.
They've just got it.
And you know, you never want to – we don't know these guys, obviously, as well as people who are in, you know, friends and family. But from our perspective, you know, it does take a certain kind of person to be a number one overall pick, to be a number one prospect in all of baseball. Not everybody can handle it. We've seen cases where guys can't handle it, or guys aren't wired the right way to do it. It's difficult to do, to handle that kind of pressure. And so far, he appears to understand the pressure and be able to deal with it very well. All right, let's talk about our season predictions, because they're pretty putrid. We do have a few games left in the season, so, you know, not 100% sure on all these statistics, but we have a good idea of who's won and who hasn't. Let's start with our MVO prediction. We both predicted before the season started that most valuable Oriole will go to Trey Mancini. We weren't that far off. I mean, Cedric Mullins is running away with the award, but Mancini has been one of the better players this season.
Right, and I think a lot of that, when we first were going over the most valuable Oriole, was Trey Mancini might not have the best season statistically for the Baltimore Orioles, but when you're talking about most valuable, obviously his story and his comeback and just what he means to the team was going to play into that a little bit. So that was a lot of our decision going into that, being that he was also going to be one of the better players on the team as well. So, but obviously, again, a lot of these are going to be the same answer, which is that nobody saw the season that Cedric Mullins had coming, and he's just surprised everybody.
Yeah, average, we predicted in terms of statistical leaders for this team. And we start with batting average, who would lead the team in batting average by the end of the season. I said Mancini, you said Mountcastle. That's going to be Cedric Mullins. Whether he hits 300 or not this season, he's leading the team in batting average. Home runs, we both said Mancini there. That's going to be either Ryan Mountcastle or Cedric Mullins, which is ridiculous. Mountcastle, I think, was going to be our second pick. Then maybe Santander. But right now, Mountcastle has 31, Mullins has 30. So the fact that he is among the team leaders is utterly absurd.
Yeah, and I mean, Ryan Mountcastle last year showed more average than he showed power. He still had good power, but I still thought Trey Mancini might come back and hit more home runs than Ryan Mountcastle. Mountcastle has shifted a little bit away from the average to more so of being that more prototypical power-hitting first baseman, which is a good thing for the Baltimore Orioles, I would say. You want more power out of Ryan Mountcastle, even if the average falls off a little bit.
Yeah, I think that there will be a spot for that kind of hitter in this lineup, especially in years to come. And if it's going to come from a position, first base is the position, or DH that it should come with.
Corner outfield, but that didn't work out. So.
Yeah, well, you might have some more power hitters, i.e. Kyle Stowers.
This is true.
As a corner outfielder. OPS, we both said Ryan Mountcastle. Cedric Mullins has the lead. I think he's going to take that one home.
Yep.
Stolen bases, we both correctly predicted Mullins. That one was pretty obvious.
Yep.
Starter ERA. This is where things get ugly. We both said Dean Kramer.
Yeah.
John Means is the leader in starter ERA. We could not have been more wrong about Dean Kramer, unfortunately. And that's not to say, like we've said on this show before, that Kramer will not be a good starter long term. But this was, unfortunately, a difficult year for Dean Kramer.
The stuff was just so intriguing with Dean Kramer coming into the season. Truthfully, I think both of us picking starter ERA was a little bit of a case of, like, all right, we don't want to pick John Means for every category. I think we got a little cute with it, picking Dean Kramer for starter ERA. But the stuff was there. He still had the potential. So it didn't seem like an outlandish pick at the time, but we got a little ahead of ourselves.
You never want to go all chalk. And Means came into the season as the odds-on favorite. So we wanted to mix it up.
Right.
In terms of wins, John Means is tied with Matt Harvey right now. With 6, we both predicted Means. This is only because Means missed so many games in the middle of the season. I don't think either of us would have said that Matt Harvey would be tied for the team lead in wins, and also Means has really been on the wrong end of some unfortunate losses.
Yeah, and this goes back to probably an argument that was more valid a few years ago. If you're still looking at pitcher wins, what are we doing?
Anything.
What are we doing?
Saves. I had Tanner Scott. He was not used in a closer role. I thought maybe there's a chance he was not. You had Cesar Valdez. Cesar Valdez has the team lead in saves right now with 8.
Which is surprising because I
ahead
thought
of Cole Sulser.
at this point it would either be one of Cole Sulser or Tyler Wells, but that's really just a case of the Orioles have had a revolving door of closers this year.
Remember at the beginning of the season when they were getting some wins? He was the closer up in Boston for the opening weekend, and he got a save there. He got some big saves early in the season, and his contributions might be forgotten because of how much time he missed.
Right.
All right, standings predictions. We both got the same order of the AL East. We said Yankees, Blue Jays, Rays, Red Sox, Orioles. Missed out on the Rays being the best team in the division. We thought, they don't have Blake Snell anymore.
To be fair,
surely
I think
this
we
team
both
won't be
said that the Rays would be better than their Vegas win total going into the year.
I think we both thought they would be a wild card team, but
Right.
my goodness,
Yeah.
that team is a machine.
Yes.
And then debut date predictions. We were pretty woefully off on a few of these, and part of it is not. I can tell to make an excuse for us. There were injuries along the way, and there were some poor performances in the minor leagues. Some Yusniel Diaz we thought would make his debut. We both said in July he did not debut. Rylan Bannon, we both thought would debut this year. He did not, and I don't expect him to in the final couple days of the season. Ryan McKenna, we were pretty close with. I was at least, so I'm going to toot my own horn.
I was not.
You said July 4th. I said opening day, and he ended up debuting a few days afterwards, April 5th. I'll give myself the win there.
Yeah.
Zach Lowther, you said July 4th. I said I said August 6th. He ended up debuting April 25th, if you recall. Came up for a save and then went back down for a long time. Weird situation, but we'll give that one to you. You were closer to the pole there. Mike Baumann, you said July 10th. I said September 1st. He debuted September 7th.
Pretty close.
Pretty good. Alexander Wells, you did not think was going to debut this season. I did. So I give myself more credit there. I'm winning this category in case you're keeping track at home. Kevin Smith, you thought he would. I said nope. Doesn't look like that's happening. Isaac Mattson, you thought he would debut opening day. I said June 28th. He ended up debuting May 7th.
Toss up.
Isaac Mattson, unfortunately, didn't have the kind of impact on this season that we thought he would.
Right.
He's been spending a lot of time in Norfolk and some time injured. We thought he might be a fixture in this bullpen.
Yeah, I didn't think Mattson was going to be, a closer or anything like that. I didn't think he'd be a high leverage guy, but I think we both thought Isaac Mattson would be pretty steady in the bullpen at least.
Yeah, and he was not a factor, unfortunately. And then Adley Rutschman, we both thought would debut this year. Did not debut, unfortunately. So, on to next year. We think that's a possibility.
Look, when we did the Birds game in terms of percentages, I put 100 Birds on Adley Rutschman debuting this year.
Didn't happen.
Did not happen. So,
but he did a show with us here.
Which is
really better
just
than making your major league debut. I mean, I think he had more fun doing this than he ever will on a baseball field.
I would agree. I would tend to agree.
And,
where else is he going to get hard-hitting questions about if he could hit a Justin Tucker length field goal?
Yeah.
Certainly not on opening day.
Ball flies farther in Oregon, according to Kyle
Apparently.
Stowers.
According to Kyle Stowers, he's not hitting that ball in Stanford.
Loved that.
There were a lot of shots being thrown around.
Yeah, love that rivalry. All right, and then finally, we did the little game before the season. If you recall, go back and watch our shows, or don't. Doesn't matter to us.
Or don't. Yeah.
Nobody does anyway. That we predicted, or we drafted, rather, the Orioles 40-man roster at the time with a couple additions. And we said, basically there were guys right before the season began that were not on the 40-man roster that we expected. Matt Harvey, if you recall, signed a minor league deal, so he wasn't on the 40-man, ended up making the team. We went back and forth. We drafted teams, and we went back and looked at how much cumulative Baseball Reference WAR these two teams have accumulated. And Brendan, I haven't won a whole lot of games on this show.
No, you haven't.
I dominated.
I would like to point that out just before we get into this, that Paul has not won a lot of the games that we have played.
Victories
on
are
this
few
podcast.
and far between.
Yes.
And I dominated.
You were due for a win.
My team had a cumulative WAR over 9. Yours had a cumulative WAR of...
it was negative
Negative 1 point
Negative
something?
1.3.
You won negative 1.3.
Yeah.
Your best pick was John Means, who took with the number 1 overall pick.
It was.
And he gave you 4.7 WAR.
Yep.
Your worst pick?
If I have to really talk about it here, my worst pick was Pat Valleca.
Yeah.
All right, I picked him over Cedric Mullins. I know. Look, I blame myself because I was a self-proclaimed Cedric
You
Mullins
should.
stan account for years. And it's one of those things where, yes, obviously it is a bad pick right now looking back, but it was also a bad pick at the time because I got too cute with it.
Yeah.
And it's so funny to look back and go through what my thinking was. I know what my thinking was, which was, well, if I don't take Pat Valleca to play shortstop, then I'm stuck with someone like Ramon Arias, who had a much better season than Pat Valleca.
Who was Mr. Irrelevant.
Who was
being-
Mr. Irrelevant
By
in the
that
draft.
we mean, of course, the last pick in the draft.
Right.
Taken
so
by me.
My rationale was I have to take Pat Valleca early so that I don't get stuck with Ramon Arias. And my goodness, was that a poor choice?
Well, it's funny because the next pick after Pat Valleca was number 10 overall, and that's when I took Cedric Mullins. And it was as if God himself whispered in my ear
We're
and
getting
said,
deep here.
this is the greatest pick you're ever going to make. And I handed in that
feels
card.
a
It was
little
like
dramatic.
It was like the Packers taking Aaron Rodgers. You were the Bears taking Mitch Trubisky. It was,
Again, feels slightly dramatic, but you know what? You needed a
if
win
I'm not
on this
in
podcast.
the Orioles Hall of Fame for this pick,
Right.
I don't know what I'm going to do.
I mean, look, you took such a massive L on the all Camden Yards draft that I feel like
You finished in last.
No, I believe my team had the most cumulative WAR, but whatever.
You according to the good fans,
the
good
other
voters,
podcast, the
I
other
will
Orioles
always-
podcasts.
I will shamelessly cater to our listeners and voters.
I didn't have the social media savvy team, but the other Orioles podcasts that tuned in and voted on the teams said that I had the best team. I take that as a win.
I think the point is we're terrible at making predictions.
That is the
and
point,
this has
correct.
been an unpredictable season.
Right.
I
I like how on every podcast we're saying, hey, listen to our podcast. We're terrible at predictions.
We manifest some stuff.
We did.
We're pretty good at
Yeah.
determining ridiculously small, minuscule roster moves a day
Right.
or two in advance because we're just unfortunately so ingrained. I mean,
Yeah.
we need to get a
Live?
life. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
But we had cool prospects on.
well,
Tune in for that.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Of course, subscribe to the MASN All Access podcast for this great content if you don't already. Thanks for watching, listening along all season long. We really could not do it without you. And next week, we are going to hand out awards for the 2021 Orioles as presented by some MASN, some Orioles talent that you will recognize a lot of names and faces there. So we're really looking forward to an award show. I'm getting dressed up. Brendan is not. And
I'm going full tuxedo. What are you talking about?
I'm dropping a G on this on a tux. Why
Yeah,
not?
sure.
Amy Jennings, our great producer today, has heard enough of us speak. So thank you, Amy. And we're going to wrap this up. He's Brendan Morty on Twitter, at Brendan Morty on Twitter. Brendan Mortensen is his actual name. I'm at Paul Mancano on Twitter. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we will catch you next week for the Orioles Awards.